Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Simon, here with another episode of The Mandalorian Season 3. This is episode number 7. This is the episode that was shown early at Star Wars Celebration in full, which I still think is a stupid thing to do. I mean, showing the entire episode to a room of about 4,000 or 5,000 people, you're going to get people spoiling, taking screenshots, photos, whatever. And I've thankfully been able to avoid any kind of leaks or spoilers, but I've had to be extra careful in the last few days, which I don't appreciate. I hate having to wait like even an hour, to sort of avoid spoilers on Twitter. It's one of the advantages of this particular show is that it arrives at about 8 o'clock in the morning UK time, which means that I can just get straight up, watch the show and not worry about spoilers. But I imagine that, for those of you around the world who it might not come out at a more sociable time, spoilers are always a worry, because the first thing you might do is just log on to Twitter and oopsie-daisy, there's a spoiler. And I just think it was a very stupid decision. I hate con-exclusive stuff. I don't understand it in this day and age of mobile phones that have cameras, the internet, social media. It doesn't make sense because everything is going to leak. It's just a natural part of life. So I don't get that decision, but it's done. And thankfully, I've avoided any kind of spoilers. So I'm coming into this nice and fresh. The only thing I've really read is that people say it is actually a really good episode. So that's a positive, at least, because I know that a lot of people were, again, split last week over the episode. As I said, it was an enjoyable episode, but it was a strange one because it was put in a position where it could well have been a standalone episode. Everything in that episode, with the exception of maybe the last 10 minutes, didn't really influence the story all that much. It was a contained episode. Could have been an episode of the Clone Wars. But as mentioned, it's just one of those things that was a bizarre choice to have an episode that was more of a side quest take place in, a time where people are really hankering for some meat on the bones of this story. So we're hoping that these last 2 episodes really do deliver and, give us some good stuff for the actual overall season story. Especially, I just want to see Moff Gideon. That's all I want to see. He's a really cool character. Giancarlo Esposito is a really good actor. And, I just want to see him. So, yes, we are going to jump in. So, let's waste no further time. And let's watch the episode. I didn't think we'd be back on Coruscant this season. But, of course, Elia Kane, we have to stick with her.
Report.
There he is. Finally. Yeah. This isn't surprising that she's feeding information to him.
Those 2 factions are sworn enemies.
Which is why I contacted you with haste.
Yeah, so he's going to realise the Mandalorians are uniting. Oh! Look at those troopers. They look so good. Also, that is a dramatic entrance. I love it.
There's a fortune to be had plundering the hype.
These are all the Imperial warlords.
Operations are gaining too much notice. If we are
That's awesome.
other than a group of that strength must not be wasted. The Grand
Warlords come in all different shapes. Thrawn.
Reemergence of our military.
Thrawn mentioned.
Enough time to deliver on Project Necromancer.
Holy shit. That Brendel hooks. Helion. What a name drop.
In the Shadow Council?
Shadow Council.
With respect,
I'm sure that was mentioned in the Aftermath books.
lies upon the secrecy of his return.
And never a word of Thrawn.
God damn, so many
Of his
important Imperial characters here. Just so cool.
This time, we look to new leadership. Dr. Pershing was captured by the New Republic. His research is lost. For now, at least.
I think he's withholding it.
You held Pershing.
amass countless resources and equipment which should be shared.
Hux obviously is putting his towards the First Order.
Your request. You'll have your reinforcements and your guard.
I love how he sounds. He sounds very much like
Of the Mandalorians.
the younger Hux.
And for all. Long live the Empire!
Long live the Empire.
Magistrate, an Imperial shuttle is advancing over the city.
It's not just a shuttle, it's a light cruiser.
First, that's a light cruiser. And
Yeah,
second,
told you.
it's not Imperial.
With apologies, sir. According to my data,
Oh, they've repainted it.
It was an Imperial ship. Look at the markings.
Yes, the Mythosaur.
Mandalorian privateers.
That reminds me of Thrawn's ship.
Half that fleet was captured from the Empire.
This has surely got to be the largest gathering of Mandalorians certainly ever seen on TV. Certainly live action. Wonder how many cosplayers are here.
Mando!
You must be thinking, this isn't what I had in mind. There's a lot more here than I expected.
That's quite a fleet you've assembled.
Oh, we rebuilt IG-11. He doesn't look very steady on his feet. Oh, it's remote controlled.
What did you do to IG-11?
Yep, yeah. Grogu. Grogu's going in there. He's got his own tank. It's Grogu in a tank.
So what do you think?
Grogu is too young to operate heavy machinery. Maybe when he's older. No.
He's got yes/no buttons.
I think he's saying he's old enough to operate it.
Yes.
Ah!
Get him out of there. No.
He's in his rebellious teen phase already.
This is not a good idea.
Is that one of the baby bears? Are they roasting one of the baby bears? We've not seen them since that episode. So the story is that they're there to clear out the dangerous species that's now inhabiting the surface. Which makes sense. I just wish they'd made that a bit clearer earlier on. Because everyone was asking the question, well, who are they taking back Mandalore from?
We'll survey the surface until we find the forge and create a safety zone.
Look at her being a leader and all that.
Then will we begin to bring down the settlers? We start scouting in that direction. Form up.
Something is obviously going to go wrong. Oh. Some very interesting music cues.
Flanking left.
That's a skiff. Who the hell's got a skiff on Mandalore? That's cool looking.
You wear the crest of the night owls.
Are these other Mandalorians?
They're Mandalorians.
They've been on Mandalore this whole time?
Is that the voice of Lady Bo-Katan Kryze?
We knew you would not forsake us, Lady Bo-Katan.
But you've been here this whole time.
Blasters remain in your service.
You've been on the planet.
I did surrender.
Oh, shit. That makes it even worse.
All remaining cities and Mandalorian lives were to be spared.
God damn.
That is how Moff Gideon came to possess the Darksaber.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
I didn't trust him, but it was the only chance I had to save our people.
These are the reasons I serve you, Lady Kryze. Your song is not yet written. I will serve you until it is.
I think that kind of exchange there is kind of a good culmination of where we went from season 1, where he was just a bounty hunter, to where he is now. And some people prefer him being a bounty hunter. Now he's kind of a servant of Mandalore. It's one of those, give or take.
We must return to the gauntlet, and I will ferry them back to the fleet in the morning.
Yeah. So they've been stranded on Mandalore. They've got no ships.
Captain,
They've had to survive off of nothing.
those of you who are well enough can join us in the search for the Great Forge.
This is a strange kind of Mad Max Star Wars crossover. Yes, Grogu! Some fucking sense, finally. Jesus Christ. Of course, it's the baby that has to break up the fight. Yeah, you might want to stop. That's not small. Holy crap. Like, what is it with these Mandos and big monsters? Did someone leave a law on? Okay. Can't believe that really cool skiff just got absolutely deleted 10 minutes after we found it. Like,
This is what's left of
this is why we can never have nice things.
Jetpacks.
Uh-oh.
more survivors.
Nope. Nope. Stormtroopers. Of course. That's what those special troopers were.
Take cover.
Oh no. Oh no. Ha! Yes! Fuck him up. God damn. These stormtroopers are half competent. I think they've got Beskar, because they're taking hits. Holy shit, so is this where Gideon has been all along? God damn. It is, it's an Imperial base. Oh shit. Oh no, he's on his own. Holy shit. He's got knee rockets.
Disarm him.
Of course, he's become a Mandalorian. He always wants to be a Mandalorian.
Thanks to your planet's rich resources, I have created the next generation Dark Trooper suit. Forged from
That makes sense. Yep, I knew it.
Activate the interceptors and bombers.
No!
Oh god.
The purge of Mandalore will be complete.
You dastardly villain.
Take him. Surrender the Darksaber and tell these people that this planet is mine.
Like she's gonna believe you.
This is the way.
This is the way. Yes. Finally using a lightsaber as intended.
Kill them.
Jesus Christ.
Come on!
He's...
We're not leaving you behind!
Oh, come on.
There are too many.
No!
I knew he was gonna die.
This is the way.
This is the way. He's going out like a fucking Mandalorian though, you know? I love the effect of the overheating on the gun. Yeah. This gun's gonna blow up. shit, the Praetorian Guard. Oh! Yeah. You can't. You can't beat them. Well, he went out like a champ. Well, I did predict that Paz was going to die earlier in the season, but what a way to go, man. Like, that is the most Mandalorian death of all time. Like, you know, he went out exactly how I think he would have wanted to go out. And, yeah, this episode, it cranked up the volume just a little bit. You know, it really did kind of bump up the intensity, and this is kind of what I think a lot of people have been looking for. If this episode had happened, you know, maybe not necessarily, maybe even last week, you know, just really drag us into the story, you know. And it's kind of like I'm almost sad that there's only one episode left now, because we're finally getting to the sort of the meat of the story with just one episode left now. And you know, it could have been done an extent. You know, I get the feeling like they didn't quite know how to spread the kind of Moff Gideon stuff over more than a couple of episodes. And so they were like, we'll leave it to the last two episodes. And that's fair. That is fair. You know, you don't want to have constant intensive fights all the way through. You don't want to have, you know, a story maybe stretched too thin. But I would have just liked a little bit more, you know, about, you know, where things were exactly heading. Now that we're there, yeah, great. I absolutely loved the episode. I loved everything about the design of the Imperials, the idea that Moff Gideon was on Mandalore this whole time. That's where his base of operations was. Seeing the Shadow Council, which is something that was mentioned in the Aftermath novels, you know, was really cool. And so many characters there that have a kind of big impact on the Imperial remnants. You know, Captain Pelion, who is a long-standing character alongside Grand Admiral Thrawn, was name-dropped in Rebels, but we never actually saw him, I don't think. So to see him still around and still helping Thrawn out, it was pretty cool. Brendel Hooks, who is the father of Armitage Hooks, was another big character, you know, in the Bloodline books and some of the others, you know, but he's the one who essentially gets the First Order off the ground in terms of its recruitments for its stormtroopers. You know, so there's a lot of people in there that are really important figures. And to see that, you know, this idea of a disheveled and disorganized empire is all part of a plan, you know, it definitely now says to me that this is where Dave Filoni wants to lead the Mandoverse. He wants to lead it to an ultimate showdown of this Imperial remnant versus the Mandalorians and potentially the New Republic. In the movie that we now know he's going to be directing. And, you know, it's one of those whereby this is all great. This is all stuff that we really want to get into. For some people, I think it might be a little bit too soon. I was thinking about this when, you know, Din was talking to Bo on the skiff about how, you know, he believes in honor and, you know, loyalty, and that's why he serves her. I think that that's kind of a culmination of this season. It's about how Din Djarin went from being a bounty hunter to being a commander under Bo-Katan. And, you know, when you look at season one was mostly a set of stories about him doing bounty hunter stuff. You know, it was completely separated for the most part from a bigger picture. You know, yes, he had to protect Grogu from, you know, Moff Gideon. But that was in of itself a little self-contained story. You know, it was just like Moff Gideon is this Imperial warlord, wants Grogu for some, you know, kind of research, and, you know, Din Djarin is kind of slowly learning to trust and is being opened up by this young child. But he's still doing a lot of bounty hunter shit, and it's all kind of like very Western, you know, very kind of like self-contained. And I think that's why Season 1 felt so different and so special. Season 2 delved more into the kind of nostalgia and, you know, obviously brought in a bigger picture with not just Bo-Katan but Ahsoka and Luke, you know, and started to introduce elements that, you know, showed us that we were in for a bigger story. And, you know, I think Season 2 is where it got that tonal shift. And for some people, they really enjoyed the first season more because of that sort of unique kind of individual story. And, you know, the fact that he was just the Mandalorian in a world that is treacherous. And, you know, he's basically fighting to survive alongside, you know, Grogu and having this personal development story. And I think, you know, definitely some of that has been lost as time has gone on. You know, when it comes to this season especially, I think we've lost that uniqueness that made Din Djarin, you know, kind of a unique character. Now he's just like, he's the guy in the silver Beskar, surrounded by other Mandalorians. He's still unique, you know, he's still very much an interesting character, but, you know, to see his own kind of developments take a little bit of a backseat can be frustrating, you know, and I think that's been an issue for a lot of people, is because they didn't understand why that was taking place before this episode, because there was no direction. You know, it just felt like the story was just trying to find its way to the end of the season so they could do what they did here, you know, with Moff Gideon. And, you know, it was kind of always leading up to a Moff Gideon versus the Mandalorian style story. It's definitely done some things different. I love his armor. I love the fact that he has essentially just become a Mandalorian in his own, you know, head. He's an Imperial version of, like, what a Mandalorian should be. And in my mind, he's also tried to clone the genetics of a Jedi. I think, you know, he wants everything. He wants all the power. He wants to be a Jedi. He wants to be a Mandalorian. He wants to be the Emperor. You know, he's doing everything, you know, not... At first, I think everyone was thinking, oh, he's got Dr. Pershing to try and, you know, resurrect the Emperor. You know, they mentioned Project Necromancer there, so there is definitely a project underway for that. But it's clear now that, you know, Moff Gideon has been working to progress his own agenda rather than that of the Empire. You know, and that's kind of an interesting and you know, important part of the story, because, again, I think, as they mentioned, you know, Mandalore's downfall always came when it was internal conflict. And, you know, the Empire reuniting would be the most dangerous thing here, but I think Moff Gideon's self-interest is what's going to cause it to fall apart. You know, he was clearly trying to position himself to be the new leader of this remnant. You know, it was great to hear the name Grand Admiral Thrawn. It's apparent that everyone's been waiting for him. You know, they've been diverting, as they said, all the resources to Hux, who has got the First Order being built, and Pelion, who I assume his resources are going to Thrawn and the Seventh Fleet in the unknown regions. But, you know, Moff Gideon clearly has a separate agenda, but he's hidden that agenda well. And, you know, these new troopers that are exclusive to him with the jetpacks, the idea that he's created this armor for himself, which is, you know, fully Beskar. You know, it's a really interesting concept, and I think it would be great. I just kind of think it could have come at a later point. I would have liked I think ideally I would have liked 2 to 3 seasons of this being focused on Din Djarin as the Mandalorian, doing bounty hunter shit with Grogu. And then, you know, season and, you know, whatever about the Jedi, and then move on to this. You know, it kind of feels like we could have had a little bit more of that season 1 style. And I think maybe the fact that it does feel a little rushed is one of the reasons why some people have had an issue with this season. But, you know, we could only really make a whole judgment once the season's over. But I think so far what people will look at on this season is to say, yes, some of those things in the first 5-6 episodes now do tie in. You know, one of the questions was, why are they having to go to Mandalore to reclaim it if there's nothing there? And it was only in this episode that they explained that, you know, the dormant species, the monsters on there, need to be cleared out. You know, and that makes sense. I mean, we saw the big monster again take out that skiff. It does make me wonder how those indigenous Mandalorians, the ones who'd been trapped on Mandalore the whole time, had not noticed any kind of Imperial activity, especially as they seem to know about the Forge. I don't think they were working with Gideon. There's certainly no indication that, you know, they betrayed the other Mandalorians. And they certainly they never seem to mention that, you know, they'd been to the Forge before. But I would have just thought that they would have noticed, you know, ships coming back and forth. You know, the Empire must have ventured out a little bit at some point. So it'll be interesting to find out, you know, more about that. And, you know, again, we learned some other things, you know, the Bo-Katan stuff about how she tried to surrender. And that's how Gideon came into possession of the Darksaber. I'm still trying to remember, because I'm sure in Rebels, Sabine gets the Darksaber. So I'm wondering how it ends up that Gideon loses it and gets it back. I don't know. Maybe they'll explain that at some point later down the line. But yeah, I mean, this was a really, really good episode. You know, a lot of really cool concepts. The Praetorian Guards. You know, I like the fact that they were the ones that killed Paz, because you have to establish them as being competent. You know, that for me has always been the Empire's problem, is trying to make them a threat. But when you've got stormtroopers that are constantly mocked for their aim, who are just cannon fodder, you know, it's hard to make them a threat. So the Praetorian Guard and these jetpack stormtroopers kind of up the ante, I think. So it'll be interesting, but it's clear now what we're going to get. It's a rescue mission to get Din back. There's going to be a space battle. You know, the Mando fleet versus the Imperials. And then there's clearly going to be a showdown in that Imperial base. You know, I think the Mythosaur might make an appearance. Maybe the Mythosaur will be what turns the tide of the fight. But, you know, I kind of wonder, like, what are they going to do with Moff Gideon now? They've really amped him up to the maximum that he can get to. And, you know, we've seen him now lose twice in the last 2 season finales, but escape, you know, and survive. I feel like this has to be the final nail in the coffin for Moff Gideon. You know, he can't soup up anymore. He can't escape and then become even stronger, because how much stronger can you be than actually being in a suit full of Beskar, as dressed as a Mandalorian, like with all these resources? You know, it's like, where do you go from here? And I think they want to set Thrawn up as being the villain now with the Mandoverse, so it would make sense to get rid of Gideon completely. Which is sad, because I really like his character, and that's why I want to kind of see more of him this season, because I did feel like this could be his last season. But, you know, it's by the by. You know, he has to bite the bullet at some point. I knew that. It's just, again, I just kind of wish we'd gotten more of, like, the Shadow Council. I really want to see more of that kind of stuff, you know? It's all well and good Jack Black and Lizzo, you know, and having those really kind of nice, fun, self-contained episodes, but, you know, we had the Clone Wars for all that stuff. I really want to get into the meat and bones of, like, the Shadow Council and, you know, these jetpack troopers and the Praetorian Guards and seeing what's going on that side, you know? But, it was a good episode. It was a really good episode, you know, and finally the season starts to make a bit more sense and culminate. Still not without its problems, you know, don't get me wrong. But, yeah, really enjoyed this episode. So let me know what you thought in the comments. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you for the finale next week.